on Saturday, the very first teaser for Matt Reeves' The Batman dropped at DC FanDome, so today I'm going to stop and break it down shot by shot. Hi, my name is Sean, and I love to talk about movies way too much. With that in mind, go ahead and join me down below in the comment section. Share your favorite moments from the Batman trailer. What were your biggest takeaways? All of that fun stuff. Also, I've done some other content related to DC FanDome, trailer reactions, ranking the different trailers that dropped. You can check that out right up here. And let's get started. So the trailer kicks off and we see the different logos associated with the film while hearing this tearing sound. Then it cuts to this guy standing over a dead body. He's got a mask on. He's ripping duct tape that he's putting over the face of the dead body. And then it cuts to a shot of the dead body and it says, "No more lies." So immediately this trailer sets up a bunch of stuff about this movie. Dark tone. We've got a serial killer taking people out, and he has a specific agenda associated with revealing lies that are going on that kind of implies that something's going on behind the scenes. Now, I actually watched the Matt Reeves panel for this, so throughout this entire video, what I'm going to do is cut in shots of Matt Reeves talking about the movie from that panel, and they start to inform a lot of the stuff that we see in this trailer quite a bit. They are very great companions to one another. This is kind of the setup that he gave for the movie.
And in our story, as he's in that mode, and he's seeing that he's not having any of the effect that he wants to have yet, and that is when the murders start to happen.
So you interpret the scene pretty differently in light of those statements because you realize this is the inciting incident that sends Batman down a path where he discovers corruption in the city that, as I was hearing him talk about it and even the hints in the trailer, I was thinking Court of Owls. That's where I was going with it. We'll talk about that a little bit later on in this. Other important detail, this is the Riddler that's doing these killings. Certainly alluded to in a shot that we're going to see in just a little bit, but as well, Matt Reeves discussed this.
And the Riddler is just emerging for the first time. You know, Paul Dano plays a version of the Riddler that no one has ever seen before.
From there, we see James Gordon show up at the crime scene, and there's voiceover of him saying, "From your secret friend." He starts investigating, looking around. He picks up a note off of the dead body. We see Bat boots start walking up, which immediately was interesting to me because it's 2 years into his time as Batman, as per the comments made earlier from Matt Reeves. But we're seeing Batman is all around Gordon at the crime scene. There's other people around, so they're kind of comfortable with him in the midst inside of this. It starts showing pictures up on the walls of newspapers and it says lies written on it. So clearly, once again, that's a big theme with this movie is that there's lies, there's corruption that has to be revealed, and the Riddler wants it revealed through killing people, and Batman's going to discover what that means in terms of him. Then we see Gordon open up the card and there's a riddle on the inside, hence the Riddler. As best I could tell, it says, "What does a liar do when he's dead?" Then you have voiceover of Gordon saying, "Does any of this mean anything to you?" Cuts to a shot of Batman walking up at the crime scene, which just puts a big smile on my face just that we're seeing Batman introduced once again. Some people get tired of how many versions of the Batman we get. Not me. Once again in the panel, Matt Reeves made it very clear that this is a detective story about Batman trying to uncover a mystery and figure out what these lies are and how it ties to him. And then he also elaborated specifically on the type of story it is. He said this.
The idea is that we're in year 2. It's the Gotham experiment. It's a criminological experiment. He's trying to figure out sort of what he can do that can finally change this place. A lot of movies like Chinatown was a key one because in investigating that sort of the series of crimes that were part of that story, he discovers the depth of corruption in Los Angeles. And so in that way, it's like a classic noir.
When you take everything that he's saying about deep, deep corruption, everything the trailer's going to tell us about there's lies that have to be revealed that might tie back to Bruce Wayne in some way, all of that feels like hints at the Court of Owls. From the comics, it's like this secret organization of Gotham elite trying to rule the city in secret and have these Talon assassins and stuff like that. And if that's where they're going, I'm down for it. Next up, we see a press briefing where there's a guy behind the mic. I'm not quite sure who that is. You see Gordon right behind him. Cuts back and you see there's a big crowd kind of watching. They're probably giving a briefing on the murder that just took place. And then it cuts to a shot of just some eyes in the dark watching probably, almost certainly Bruce Wayne. And then it cuts back to reveal that he is watching the press briefing from a distance, just establishing that this version of Batman, this Bruce Wayne, he is paying attention, like he is doing that detective work from the shadows, trying to put everything together. Next, we see a shot of Bruce Wayne riding his motorcycle through a cemetery. This is the scene that we saw in the leaks that both had footage of the stuntman riding on the motorcycle as well as the person standing there in the suit that a bunch of people like me have been grabbing shots for over the last several months. It kind of continues with him pulling into some sort of shop, and then we hear a voiceover that's probably Alfred saying, "You've become quite the celebrity." And then as he pulls into the shop, he takes his helmet off. Cuts to a shot of Bruce Wayne in a room in a suit looking very distressed. Kind of cuts to another shot and realizes we're at a funeral. A car is driving through it. I'm guessing this is the funeral for the person that we saw murdered in the opening sequence of the trailer. Cuts to a shot where you see the driver of the car is standing there. It looks like he's holding a bomb, a detonator of sorts, and on his shirt it says, "To the Batman." While all of this is taking place, we hear voiceover probably of Alfred saying, "Why is he writing to you?" All of this building mystery, all of it making clear that our main bad guy here is trying to reveal something to the Batman. It's all very interconnected. And a lot of this goes back to stuff that Matt Reeves mentioned inside of the panel once again, that the movie is all about the interconnectedness of these characters, their relationships to one another. And throughout it, we do see the origin of certain villains. We'll talk about that in just a second. But we also kind of don't tell a Batman origin story, but we touch on his origins through all the stuff being revealed and how it all kind of ties together. This sequence comes back again later on. The trailer starts to cut through a bunch of different stuff, and it actually will show another little sequence or little shot from the sequence, but we'll talk about that when we get there. After this, we get like 4 seconds of Catwoman, and it's only 4 seconds. It's cutting between like 4 different shots, but I loved it because it's cat burglar, Catwoman. This is that you see her lowering down from a rope. She's cracking a safe, and they kind of have the shot of her from behind where she has the cowl and everything. It's like a classic, true version of Catwoman that we kind of get to see just from these little shots. I absolutely loved it. Here's what Matt Reeves had to say about Catwoman.
And then to have, Zoë Kravitz, her iteration of Selina Kyle touches on all these kind of iconic sort of things that people know from the comics. So Selina isn't Catwoman yet. That's actually part of the journey.
Then it cuts to a sequence of a bunch of thugs outside of a warehouse. Then we see a shot of Penguin, actually, played by Colin Farrell, who's totally unrecognizable, apparently watching whatever's happening at the warehouse. But you see this version of Penguin, and you're immediately like, I think that's Penguin, but isn't he played by Colin Farrell? And that's not Colin Farrell. Twitter for the last 2 days has just been going bananas, like, is that him? Is that not him? And then a bunch of people said, no, this is Colin Farrell. This is the Penguin. We are seeing our first look of him. Colin is just totally unrecognizable in the role. Here's Matt Reeves' take on him.
Oz is not yet the Kingpin that he's going to become. He's the Penguin. In fact, doesn't like being called the Penguin.
One final thing on this sequence, it cuts to a shot of the Batman watching from afar. It appears that both Penguin and Batman were watching whatever was happening at the warehouse. At least the way it's cut, that's the way it makes it seem. Then the trailer starts going a little bit quicker into action mode. We see Batman, what looks to me like in a jail cell or in a police station, surrounded by police officers. They don't seem very happy with him. He starts getting pushy with them. Cuts to a shot of what looks like Gordon slamming Batman up against the cage. So, like, I see shots like this, and you're really not quite sure what to make of it, because if he'd been arrested, they would have taken the mask off, so we'd already be seeing the face. So what is the context under which Batman is showing up in the police station or someplace where he's surrounded by police officers, and this scenario plays out? And that's one of the things that seems like ties into this a lot. We see a lot of Batman around police officers at the beginning working with them, here looking antagonistic, and then there's a shot later on, they look very unhappy with the Batman. Then we get a few more seconds of the Catwoman. Looks like her on a motorcycle. Then it cuts to a shot of her doing a bunch of cool flippy kicks at the Batman. And then they kind of stare each other down. Just the style of having Catwoman as someone that's more agile and it's more about quick movements and stuff makes sense. And I appreciate it when movies like this show the different fighters having different styles to them. But even just getting a little glimpse of the fight, it looked really cool to me. Then we get shots of several different things while the voiceover says, "What is the price of your blind eye?" One of the shots is of the Riddler ripping the masking, or ripping the duct tape, taping up the body. And then it goes back to the funeral. And it shows a shot of an explosion coming from the car. So that guy looked like he was rigged to explode. So it's probably that guy sets off the bomb, but it's not Bruce Wayne. It's the Batman in front of the explosion, kind of being blown up by whatever happened at that funeral sequence. So apparently Bruce Wayne was at the funeral, runs off, changes clothes, comes back. Some sort of sequence goes down there that leads to big explosion. All of this is intercut with shots of Riddler taping up the body. And once again, the text or the voiceover says, "What is the price of your blind eye?" And all of this alluding to something is going on in the city that Riddler feels like he has to take these people out and make them pay and reveal whatever they've been doing. Court of Owls. And then we get the shot that made a bunch of us lose our minds. We get this group of guys that are painted white with makeup on, kind of looking like a Joker gang of sorts. This guy goes, "Who are you supposed to be?" And then it cuts to a shot of this guy walking up to the Batman, and he just destroys this guy with this series of punches that just kind of keep coming at the guy, beating him down. Well, the guy has no defense whatsoever. The guy falls down. He follows him down, keeps punching him in the face more times, and then says, "I am vengeance." Which, when they cast Robert Pattinson, the internet did what the internet does, and it judges the person based off of what is the most well-known thing about them. Thus, in the case of him, it's Twilight. Everybody forgets everything he's done the last 8 years. They go, "The guy from Twilight? Sparkly vampires? I guess vampires, bats, there's a connection, but is that really the guy that you want to get as Batman?" And then you get this shot, and you go, this guy's got a lot more to him than sparkly vampires. There's more to him than vampires playing baseball. And you get this version of the Bat just throwing down on the guy. And you wonder, is he going to say, "I am Batman"? And nope. Changes it up. Just, we get the vengeance one. And you're like, yes, this is angry Batman that is destroying this guy. I like that scene. Cut to the Batmobile firing up the engine, turbine to speed, and then it takes off. I love that it's like this muscle car that's been upgraded, and it doesn't look like a tank. I'm not crazy about tank Batmobiles that we've gotten both in Batfleck as well as Bale Batman. I wasn't as crazy about those versions. This one is the muscle car. That's more aligned with what I would like a Batmobile to look like. But you also still do get the comic booky flame shooting out of the bat, bright colors. And then we see this shot where it looks like it kind of crashes into something. Real quick shot, and you can't really make out exactly what's happening, but we just get to see the Batmobile in action just a little bit. Then there's a real quick shot of someone shooting Batman in the chest with a gun. And if you watch it slow enough, you can see in the background, it's the guys with kind of the Jokery makeup in the background. So probably that same scene or an extension of that sequence that we saw before. But I mean, he gets shot in the chest and you see him kind of pull back just a little bit, but the shot, it's like half a second long. Then we get another one of these 1 second shots. It's Batman, I guess, using his grappling gun to pull himself up a stairwell. And if you look in the background, you got a bunch of police officers aiming their guns at him. So this trailer started off with Batman doing his criminology with police officers all around him. Then in the middle of the trailer, we see tensions kind of brewing. Gordon slams him into a cage, and now police officers are aiming guns at him and shooting at him as he escapes with his grappling gun. Matt Reeves, I think, kind of elaborated on somewhat about this in the panel, and he talks about kind of the way people perceive Batman at this point in time.
He's not yet the vision of the character that he becomes, where he becomes a symbol of hope for the city. And so they're afraid of him, frankly.
Then there's a real quick shot of, appears to be the Penguin, driving a car, giggling just a little bit. And then one final shot of Batman with the gang of Joker-looking fellows. And it's like him standing up with a crowd of people in front of him, which inherently is just a cool Batman moment of him being tough. But the two previous things we saw of him with them was, one, him beating one of them down. Second one, them shooting him in the chest. So we don't know the order of how all those play out, but I would suspect that they were out of order. He gets shot, goes down, epically stands up in front of them, and then one of the guys, "Who are you?" walks towards him, gets destroyed by the guy that they just shot. I don't know if that's all speculation, but you can just start to see how this is it immediately establishes a very intense Batman in this film. Then it cuts to the logo while this epic version of Nirvana's Something in the Way is playing, and fit this particular trailer very nicely. Closes out with just a couple more shots where we see Batman standing in, assumedly, his Bat Cave. Voiceover from, assumedly, the Riddler says, "You're a part of this too." And then it cuts to a shot of Bruce standing there with the mask off, but he's got the makeup for the eyes. I love the fact that they have that detail, that they acknowledge the fact that Batman is wearing makeup under the mask to kind of fill out the darkness. All the other movies have him wearing makeup, but they don't actually show the consequences of him wearing makeup at any point in time. And then you hear, assumedly, Bruce Wayne saying, "How am I a part of this?" And so from beginning to end, and sprinkled everywhere in the middle, something is going on, that there's a group of people lying, that Riddler's trying to expose this by killing them, and he wants Batman to pay attention to it. And then we close with, "You're a part of this too," and he doesn't know exactly what that means. Matt Reeves, once again, elaborates on all of this mystery of corruption that needs to be revealed. Said this:
that only reinforces what he knows about Gotham, but it opens up a whole new world of corruption that went much farther. But as that story starts to come out, without being an origin tale for him, it ends up being something that touches on his origins. The nature of what this place is and the history of it is critically important to our story. And
as I've mentioned before, when you put all of that together, it just sounds like Court of Owls to me. And especially with that last line of dialogue, sounds like Martha Thomas Wayne might have had some connection to the Court of Owls that led maybe to their death. Hence, that ties back to his origin, that leads to where the city is at, that required a Batman to show up. That's my guess where some of this is going. Maybe, I've heard some people on Twitter speculating, maybe Riddler thinks that Batman is one of the Talons of the Court of Owls. That's why he's trying to kind of go after him and writing notes to him. I don't know where it's going. All of it sounds interesting to me. I loved this trailer. Tell me what you thought down below in the comment section. If you want some of my trailer reactions, check that out right there. If you want some of my other DC content, check out that playlist right there. And thank you so much for watching.